Now, one last thing that we need to pay attention to is the login. Now, ideally, you want the login to be another input, and it literally just submits this form that we created. Now again, in my web page, in my example, they're using JavaScript to submit the code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of this, because this is the login button that they're showing in here. And it's actually not a button. It's literally just a container that says login, and then they're using JavaScript to submit this. So I don't want this. I want a proper HTML button. So this is the span. This is the code that's responsible for it. And again, if you're confused, you can just come on this page, right click this, inspect element, and it'll highlight it for you. You'll see that this is inside a div, and inside that div we have this span login. As you can see, it actually highlights it for us. So I'm going to delete that login. I already have it in here, so we're just gonna mark it, delete it. That's gone now. Then I'm gonna add my input that I'm going to use to submit the form. And I'm just going to do input, then set the type, which is going to be submit. And then I'm going to set the value. This is what the user sees. This is literally the text displayed inside the button. And for me, I'm just going to call it login, because they called their login button login. And that's it. So I literally just deleted, we'll just go back to their web page to see what we did. We literally just deleted this login text right here, and we added a proper HTML input to it. Now, we also have this div right here, which is a container. And if you notice all the styles, so the yellow color in here and the size of the container and all of that is set inside this div. So when I highlight this, you'll see the whole div gets highlighted, but when I highlight the span, you'll see only the text gets highlighted. So we actually want the style that's being used in here, and we don't need this div. So before I delete the div, I'm going to copy its style. And if you notice in here, you see we have a style tag, which is responsible for styling this div. So I'm going to right click this tag. I'm going to click on edit as HTML, and there's no point of editing it in here, because it'll actually, anything you modify will be gone once you refresh. So why I'm doing this is just so that I can copy the style. So I'm just navigating down, and this is the style that I want. It's actually in here, and I'm just going to copy all of this so that my button will look exactly like this div after I delete it. So I'm just going to do Control-C to copy. I'm going to come back to my document here. I'm going to delete this whole div until I find it. So this is the closing of it, and the start of it should be before that. So if I just look for div and go previous this time, you'll see it in here. I'm just going to go down so you see it. So this is the div that we want to get rid of, and it has the style that I like. That's going to make my button look like the button that they're using. So first of all, I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to add the style in here. So it's going to do style. And put everything between quotations. Save it, and let's go and refresh the page, see what it looks like. So if we click on login, you can see the page still looks very similar. We still have our inputs in here, and this is now is a login button. And notice that the font in here is a little bit different. So it used to be white, now it's black, and it's slightly smaller. Now, if you want to achieve a perfect result, you can easily add a few properties to the style tag. I don't want to get into too much details about CSS and all that, because it's going to get a bit confusing, but I think the page is very convincing right now. Now, I'm just going to do it quickly just to show you that you can literally mimic anything you want with some knowledge of CSS and styling. So we have the style in here. All we have to do is just do color, white, and save it. If you come here and refresh, you'll see the color is going to go to white, and so on. So again, I don't want to dive too deep into CSS and HTML. I think I've already spent too much time on it, but I think this way we covered everything that might face you. Usually in most of the situations that you'll face, you'll probably won't need to modify the URLs or modify the inputs and wrap them in form. I only did this because the website that I'm trying to clone is actually programmed like that. If you're really stuck at this point and you just didn't know how to modify HTML, you can just use a generic login web page, and I'll include this later on in the course. But if you just go back over this lecture, I know it might be I covered a few new kind of ideas and topics in it, but what I did is very simple. Basically, you want to look for the input tags, make sure that they are wrapped in a form tag, which looks like this and like this one. If they're already wrapped in form tags, perfect, leave it and just continue with the next lecture. If they're not, just sort them out the same way I did here. Put the form tag, so put a form here and the form with the / form, and then if there is no input button, then put the input button yourself. And that's it. We're good to go, and we'll continue with creating our evil IP or fake access point in the next lecture.